So you and Stanley had the bottom line from what year to what year?
We opened February 12th, 1974, and we closed 2004. January 22nd, bittersweet. We closed on the birthday of my twin daughters. That's the day we closed.
And for those who aren't familiar with the location, which was also iconic.
In the Village, it was 15 West 4th Street, West 4th and Mercer. So.
And you referenced earlier when we were off camera that Greg is going to be the keeper of the flame of the Bottom Line archives. Can you explain
Well, he didn't
that?
know that. I just told him, so that's an exclusive for you. Greg, among everybody I met, he treasures he treasures and knows the value and worth of what we did and what we were able to accomplish. And he knows what all the tapes are worth historically and culturally. And he also knows what all the memorabilia, all the contracts, all the pictures, all the stuff that we have. And he feels very much the same way that I do about it. And so I feel very good. I know he knows the worth of what it is that is there. So there's nobody I feel more comfortable with, in terms of this material than him. And so basically, whether he likes it or not, he's going to have to take care of it. I won't be here forever.
Well, we started the process last year. I've been teaching at William Patterson for the last few years. I teach music production and arranging and composition. And we got some interns from William Patterson to come to Alan's house and organize the archive.
Wow.
And that was a big job. It took about a year. But we had one guy in particular was really helpful with that, John Garham. And he put everything into a database. So we now have every tape in every format listed by date in a master archive list. And that has enabled us to get a lot of companies and a lot of different people interested in what exists there. And it's over 1,000 pieces.
Over 1,000 performances.
That's amazing.
Now, it's not 1,000 different musicians because we have late shows and early shows. We always did 2 shows. Most of the times we did 2 shows. So, but sometimes on a late show you have somebody incredible who just comes in and sits in. I think Dave Mason was performing and Stevie Winwood sat in. Carl Perkins was performing and Eric Clapton came and played with him. So you get, you by virtue of having 2 performances, you get the best ones. And it allows Greg to take the best of an early show and the best of a late show and put them together seamlessly.
Okay. Now, you guys are going to be releasing some of these performances initially as CDs, right? Not DVDs yet? CDs. And so the first 3 are going to be?
The first 3 are Brecker Brothers from 1976. Willie Nile from 1980 and 2000. So it's a double disc release. And Kenny Rankin from 1990, which was originally released in the late 90s on Bottom Line Records, but now we've remastered it and done extensive historical liner notes for the disc. And that's the 25th anniversary of that concert this year.
Okay.
Let me just say, there was a Bottom Line Records that was in the late 90s, and there were 11 titles put out.
I remember.
Of the 11 titles, 5 of them were part of this thing called the Encore Collection, which were these live performances done at the Bottom Line, which Greg makes reference to remastering, where those 5 will be remastered, as well as 2 volumes that were put out by Razor and Tie called In Their Own Words, which are a compilation of these moments from the songwriter shows that we used to do. But Greg has now actually gone into the vaults and with the Brecker brothers and with Willie have found things that have never been released, and he's worked on it. We're fortunate in that the guy who really is responsible for getting this whole thing happening is a guy by the name of Bob Frank, who ran Koch Entertainment and was very, very aware of the Bottom Line, very much a part of it, because when there were Bottom Line records, it was distributed at one point by Koch. And Bob had always had a passion about, he knew what the club was, and he knew what. So he, as an executive, has been somebody who has been very committed to doing what Greg and I have been doing, like artistically. He's been making the thing. What a lot of people might not realize is that, when the Bottom Line closed, I got like emails from a gazillion people that said, oh, you have these great recordings, you should put them out, that way you can make more money. What people don't realize is it's not that easy to take something and turn it around, because there were like a lot of rights issues.
Right.
And you can't just go and put something out that was recorded years ago without getting the rights cleared. There are publishing rights that have to be cleared. There are performance rights that have to be cleared. If an artist was with a record company, there are those legalities that have to be cleared. And Bob has taken on the whole business end of it through his company, and he's actually made it possible for Greg and I to be able to go in and do the artistic things that that we've been able to do. And the other thing is, we've been lucky enough to do this work at a place in the Village called the Magic Shop. And why I say we've been lucky, because these guys specialize in restoration of old material. Again, what the public doesn't realize is you could be talking about a tape that was recorded in Brecker Brothers 1976. Brecker Brothers 1976. Well, and Greg can address himself to this. There's a whole process that you just don't take a tape and transfer it. There's a whole process that has to happen. And we've been fortunate in the sense that this studio really specializes and he's been working with an amazingly talented woman as an engineer.
Jessica Thompson.
And the guy who owns the place, Steve Rosenthal, is a very big supporter. Why don't you talk about how this stuff is put together?
Well, they're set up for this, uniquely set up for this at the Magic Shop. So when there's archival recordings, say, of Woody Guthrie, which were recorded just on a wire in the nascent recording industry that Edison had created. You have Steve figuring out the tools of how to transfer that to the digital world. So it's not, nothing is just put it in the machine and transfer it. The DAT tapes that we all remember, those some of the first convenient digital tapes, are terrible mechanically over time. So they have to be repaired, they have to be put into a special machine that Steve developed. So he's developed special technology that enables us to get this stuff from point A to release. And the old reel-to-reels have to be baked so that the metallic fragments that include the information of the music get back onto the physical tape. Otherwise, when you're playing them, you see the stuff just shredding off of the tape. It's disturbing. But knowing that they know exactly how to bake it for how long and then transfer it, and we get a good transfer. Sometimes they have to go back and bake it a second time because the transfer is problematic. But they know all the ins and outs and what have yous of how to make archival stuff sound as good as it can sound. So what we have is a really good sounding archive. We have cassettes that sound good, we have reel-to-reels that sound good, we have DATs that sound good. And that's what's exciting about it too is, and Alan didn't really particularly house this stuff in a very careful way, so we've gotten lucky in that the stuff has held up very well. So we're looking forward to releasing as much of it as we can, because it represents a time in music where creativity and individuality and not sounding like the other guy was the rule of thumb. And in that light, kind of dealing with the current music scene where everybody's trying to sound like something that is recognizable, and there's very little adventure. So it harkens back to a time of really live creativity and a range of musical styles that don't necessarily exist anymore either. So we have 30 years of stuff that represents, I think, the height of the music recording industry.